What what if you could have it all? Do you think you would be truly happy? And when you think of it all, what does that include? What places would you visit? What food would you eat? What daring adventures would you take? What would you like to accomplish? Who do you desire to share your experiences with? And for if there's any kids out there, what toys would you want to get? If we got what we truly wanted, would we be happy? Well, about a month ago, Tom Brady won his seventh Super Bowl ring. He already took the record for winning the most Super Bowl rings in 2019 with his win with the Patriots. And now he's definitely in a league of his own. He's been called the GOAT, the greatest of all time, and only time will tell if this title has merit. But at least right now, he is the most dominant athlete in the NFL that we've ever seen. And for many of us, we could never dream of achieving success like Brady has. He'll go down in the record books for sure. And yet, are his desires fulfilled? Well, when he was 27 years old and had just won his third Super Bowl, he appeared on 60 Minutes. Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still feel like there's something greater out there for me? I mean, maybe a lot of people would say, hey man, this is what it is. I reached my goal, my dream, my life. But I think, God, it's got to be more than this. I mean, this isn't what it's all cracked up to be. The host then asked what the answer was, and Brady says, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. Now, this interview is obviously out of date, as Brady is now 43 years old. Perhaps he has the answer now. Was the key to greatness just more Super Bowl titles? Or proving that he could win with a different organization than the Patriots? What do you think his answer would be now? Perhaps we're never fully satisfied. Perhaps our desires are impossible to actually fully satisfy. Can you ever have enough money, enough fun, travel to enough places, eaten the finest foods, have enough toys? It seems like perfection or the ultimate is always still hanging out there in front of us, impossible to fully grasp. It's a bit like our souls, or like a glass that never gets full. No matter how much water goes in, as if there's a leak in the cup, it seems like we never get to the top. Perhaps that's why it's increasingly difficult to stop and slow down. We're always reaching out for some kind of success or happiness that never feels quite attainable. We are trying to address this longing in our souls, and we feel it increasing pressure to produce and to not waste time. This tendency interferes with our God-given need for rest. When we get time off work, we quickly fill up our time with other commitments. Between around-the-clock accessibility to work and increasingly flexible work hours, emails and texts can fill our waking hours. If we're doing online schooling, this increased flexibility of working from home makes it so that there's not really a school day or a work day. You can do schoolwork whenever you want, which means there's lots of days you probably should be doing work where you don't feel very productive, and also very few days you feel you can fully rest and do nothing. Not only that, but we have increased access to stores and we can shop at any time. And if you have kids, like I do, you can quickly find that your evenings and weekends can be filled with children's athletics, tutorings, music lessons. It's possible to fill every waking moment with commitments. And all of these things can quickly fill our days, making it so that we never stop. And tragically, as we chase after our desires, we find ourselves in a chronic state of restlessness, hurry, and overload. It's like a spiral that spins out of control. Well, today marks the 4th Sunday in Lent. We've been moving through our series, Practices That Shape Us, Practices to Live Another Way. And Lent is a time where we slow down and consider our need for God and the ways that we have bought into narratives of this culture and our world that have hindered us from loving God and loving others. We ask God to forgive us. We ask him to help us to live a new way. And we thank him for dying for us, even when we were distant from him. So today we're going to discuss the topic of Sabbath and how it may help us to simply stop An invitation that I presume is difficult for many, to stop worrying, to stop striving, to stop working, to stop shopping, to simply just rest in God's presence and his arms for 24 hours each week. So I want to tell you a story out of the book of Hebrews, Hebrews 4, 1 to 11. Once Moses reminded the people of Israel where they had come from and therefore the importance of rest. He looked out at them and he said, "Remember that you were slaves in Egypt and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day." The nation of Israel had once been slaves. They were forced to work for the Egyptians. And not only that, but when the people became strong, prosperous, and numerous, the Pharaoh, the king of the Egyptians, ordered for all of the boy babies to be killed. The king wanted to ensure that the Israelites could not grow strong enough to challenge the Egyptians. The Pharaoh did everything he could to ensure that they would not be able to go free. The Israelites cried out to God because of the injustice and the pain. "Oh, God of our fathers, please rescue us and find us. Please do something." And what do you think? Did God hear them? Was he able to break the chains of injustice and rescue them from slavery? Well, he did. He did hear them. He sent a servant named Moses to lead the people out of Egypt. And through Moses, God did miraculous signs and wonders that brought great fear to Pharaoh and convinced him to let the Israelites go free. There were 10 signs or plagues like flies and gnats and water being turned to blood and the sky going dark, and the worst off, the firstborn child dying. Now Moses lifted up his staff and he even parted a sea. The people were able to walk between the waters and start a new life. They were free from the oppression of the Egyptians, and they were free to worship God and become a great nation and have a land of their own. It's amazing. It's an amazing story. The people were so happy, and they were finally free to establish their homes, establish their villages, and their religious practices. And parents could finally see their kids learn and grow and play. But unfortunately, it was not an easy journey for the Israelites. They had left Egypt, but Egypt was still very much within them. The Israelites had a hard time loving God, even though he had done so much for them. They were able to set up a kingdom in the land of Canaan under the leadership of Moses' successor, Joshua. However, the people never fully reached a place of peace. The people continued to be attacked and hurt by other nations. There were constant wars and threats from the Canaanite people that the Israelites were unable to remove from the territory because of their own disobedience towards God. And not only that, the people were not at peace with one another. There continued to be disputes between the different tribes, and eventually the kingdom of Israel was divided into two. The people could never fully figure out how to love one another or live in peace and harmony. They never really became that people of God that they were intended to be. Wasn't God supposed to free them from all their toil and their struggle? Weren't they able to follow God without any hindrance? Well, it was the promise that God had given them, but unfortunately, because of their sin, they never fully entered into that place of rest. Their hearts were not fully open to God, and they were unable to truly unite and love God. If the Israelites could never fully be free, is there any hope for us? Will we ever experience peace? Can we ever simply just rest? Like if a guy like Moses could not get into the promised land, what hope do I have? Well, we see in the New Testament that the promise of rest still remains open for people today. Though the Israelites were unable to fully enjoy God and be satisfied, God has not closed that door. Though Joshua led the people into a physical land that would provide rest, God would send a greater leader who would ultimately lead the people into a never-ending, unshakable, and perfect kingdom, one that is truly full of life, beauty, and peace. And who do you think this greater leader, a better Joshua and a better Moses would be? If you thought Jesus, of course you're right. Jesus is the one that comes to ultimately liberate us from our trials, our pressures, and our oppression. Through his death and his resurrection, he makes it possible for us to be children of God and to love him and to love others. He also makes it possible for us to live with him forever. And he is establishing an ultimate kingdom that goes beyond physical borders, culture, or ethnic heritage. We get to be a part of his kingdom and experience his rest because of what he has done on the cross. And so, what does this mean now, you may ask? Well, part of how God invites us to participate in and experience his rest is to realize that we are like him, made in his image, and that we need to follow his example. When he laid down the foundations of the world, he stepped back and he looked at it and he said, "This is good." And then when he was done, he put up his feet and he took a break. Isn't that crazy? God took a break. The God of the universe rested. We think of him as always working and keeping busy, running the whole world. But Genesis says that when he completed creation, he stopped. And it was not because he was tired, but because he marveled and delighted in the creation that he made. He stopped to delight in us. So therefore, part of the redemptive and restorative work that God is doing through the death of Christ is enabling us to be like him, to be able to rest, marvel at his work and our work, and be able to take part in the beauty of this world, which you can't do when you're a slave. You don't have the option of stopping. There's no rest. You're forced to labor and work all day, and you never get a break. So we, as followers of Christ, we do get to stop and acknowledge our need for God and try to obey him and rest from our work. And we're choosing not to be slaves of the systems and structures of this world, but to rest in our identities as children of God. And Jesus does not only offer us the promise of rest in the future, but he wants us to experience rest now. So it's important that we be intentional about resting. Otherwise, we're being disobedient. We end up making ourselves or the people under our influence slaves again. And I don't want that. And I assume you don't want that either. So therefore, we practice Sabbath to remind us that we serve a God who has promised that he is and will set us free. We are no longer slaves, caught up in broken systems in our world, seeking to prove ourselves and show our productivity and our worth. We can simply just be, because we have a king who loves us and dies for us. He alone is the one that can satisfy the deepest desires of our heart and calm the deep distress that lies deep in our souls. Sabbath is much more than just a day, but it is a whole new way of being in the world. It helps us live in the Father's loving presence all week long. And to Sabbath, well, does not just happen all of a sudden. We need to be really intentional to try to stop. It takes planning and preparation. For my family, it means I have to make sure the laundry is done, the fridge is stocked, and the chores all have to wait another day. It takes a lot of self-discipline to fight the urge to try to accomplish things or work on the days that we've set aside to rest. And it's difficult when we're trying to do massive renos or reorganize our house or do a big purge. But just to stop on the Sabbath and let the projects just sit as we learn to rest. You know, when God built the universe, he worked hard for 6 days, and then he rested on one, and he made us in his image and therefore built this rhythm and pattern into the very DNA of our souls. We need to participate in meaningful and productive work, and then we need to stop, rest, and admire the world around us. And we can try to fight this rhythm and believe the lie that the more work and more effort that we do, the more productive that we become. But we're seeing from history and present research that this belief is not actually true. We really do need rest. More work does not necessarily mean more productivity. Sabbath is an invitation to simply delight. It's a time to simply be in a life that is mostly characterized by doing. And it's a holy time where we feast, we play, we dance, we connect with loved ones, we sing, we pray, we laugh, we tell stories, we read, we paint, and we enjoy creation. On the Sabbath, we set aside time for God and the people that we love, and we enjoy restful activities that help us enjoy God and others. Whether that's a picnic in the park, an afternoon nap, a phone call with a loved one, lingering over a coffee or a tea with nowhere to rush to, a family game, or time spent with children. It's also time to just let go of the stress from the work week and the other responsibilities that you're carrying. You simply just let them sit in the arms of God. You let go of your to-do list and simply allow yourself to have a day free from accomplishments or goals. And you also put away any difficult conversations that you need to have. You put them on hold. You trust the areas of conflict or difficulty in your life to God. Sabbath is not only about loving God and our family and friends, but it's also a way of resistance. Slaves do not get a Sabbath. They do not get a day off. They're not in control of their lives or have freedom. They're not treated like humans, but as a commodity for the profit of others. And we're surrounded by a culture that never stops producing, never stops purchasing, and never stops wanting more. When we simply say that we're going to stop for 24 hours and not participate in the hurriedness and the consumption of our society, we are participating in resistance. Imagine if everyone truly stopped once a week. Amazon had no orders, restaurants sat empty, malls were like empty, barren hallways. Imagine the effects that would have on our society. Imagine the effects it would have on our lowest income earners, who are not often in control of our schedules. What if the whole world stopped and took a day to focus on loving God and spending time with their loved ones? What kind of effect would that have? Sabbath reminds us that we do not have to live a busy and hurried life. Sabbath is a helpful limit on our lives. It tells us when enough is enough. If you can't fit the commitment into 6 days, you can't do it for the sake of your soul and for everyone else's. It acknowledges that you cannot be everything to everyone or take care of the whole world. It is an invitation to freedom and to, even if in a small way, to say no to the systems of our world. Sabbath is God's invitation for us to be able to pay attention to our limits and to stop. He doesn't want us to burn out. We're children, not slaves. We are a part of another kingdom not ruled by the clock or a tyranny of slaves. We can trust our Creator and simply learn to settle into his deep rest. Thanks for coming and checking out this video today. For more information, check us out at www.bytowncommunitychurch.ca. And if you would like to practice Sabbath yourself, watch our website and we'll include some practices on our blogs that can help you to practice Sabbath. Take care, and we'll connect with you all soon.